Alright, so more importantly, this is kind of the gym mascot. This is Danger. Likes being held like a baby, and he enjoys gains. And his balls are rubbed down because they drag on the ground. Because this is big ball Danger. This is the mate.
Alright guys, so hamstring day today. We come in, we always start with calves, as you guys know, leg day. Brett and I's thing is to start it out with the most brutal thing. Get the pain tolerance high, get the juices flowing, battery acid pumping through the calves. We went to standing leg curls, and I'll let Brett kind of give you the rundown on that.
So yeah, first exercise we usually like to do some kind of curl. Obviously, today we went with the isolation one, so single leg at a time. Really like to start with these because you're fresh, there's no blood in there really yet, so you can really start feeling the pump and activation, make sure you're doing it right. So this is one you gotta, most people have that standing single leg raise. Make sure you're driving your quad, so the front, into the pad to create the movement back up behind you. So you're curling up while driving up that quad into the pad and squeezing at the top. When you look at the very bottom, we don't just go down and swing it and go again. We stop each rep and then use our hamstring to curl the weight up. It's not swinging. You're not swinging. You're curling with control. So we went 3 sets there, did a top set on the third. On the final one, we did the drop set. All right, so we've done 3 sets here. We worked up to a top set on the single leg standing leg curls. Now we are going to do drop set here. So how we set these up, you look, we got a 25, a 10, and a 25. So the purpose of this is the first round, you're trying to hit failure on one leg. You take the 25 off, you hit failure, which is the 25-10. You take the 10 off after that, and then you just hit the failure set at 25. So it's 3 sets of failure. It'll probably look something like, like 10, 8, 6 in that rep range, But main thing is we're just going, we're trying to hit failure every time and then leave everything at the end of this first exercise that we can. Come on. Here we go. So that's a great way to kind of start your workout. When we got done with that full blood, then we went from there. We went to a seated curl.
So going into the seating curl, guys, this is my favorite hamstring movement. I think this attributes to the best way to get a good mind to muscle connection with your hamstrings. There's not a lot of ways to cheat when you get into this machine. If you're doing it right, you push your hips back into the seat really well, and you just curl. Guys, the thing about hamstrings, it's very similar to a bicep. They don't call it a curl for no reason. So kind of think about that in your head as taking your ankles to your ass, really squeezing and controlling that curl in the hamstring. So in the curls, we do a couple warm-up sets, then we went into a top set. We obviously have to throw a weight on the stack just to make it heavy enough. So we'll go into that, and then we went into a little rest pause just because this machine, we can't even put enough plates on it right now. So we rested with a little bit of strain and stretch on the hamstring and then finished them off just to failure. This is a great way to kind of extend a set and be able to push a little bit past failure of where you normally go.
Our next exercise, we went into a lion leg curl. So you're wondering maybe why, you know, so many curls. What we do is we like to pre-exhaust the hamstrings with curl movements before we get into our stretch exercises, our presses, you know, lunges, adductors, things like that. So we just went to a lion leg curl. As you'll see in the video, we were already pretty full of blood there, so these weren't great reps, but what we were doing was just trying to get the most out of them. So like I said, keeping your hips down. As you see, make sure you're driving your hips into the pad. So what we see a lot of, especially at your gym, you know, when you're walking around, you see somebody doing the stack on the leg curl, but the thing is their butt's flying up on the air on every rep. If you see or you feel your butt coming up off the pad while laying down, you are no longer in your hamstrings. You are converting them to your glutes, or you're just using momentum to get the weight up. So make sure everything is still. Your body is still all the way down, all the way to your hamstrings. The only thing moving is at your knee joint, where you're contracting your hamstrings to curl up the weight. So as strict as you can be here, like I said, it doesn't take much. Like you should feel it. We can feel the blood flowing really well here. We are kind of just finishing that pre-exhaustion aspect.
So, and as you guys will see in this too, even Brett and I will lift our butt a little bit when we get tired, and both of us know that, and when we see it, we'll put our hand on each other's low back to kind of remind us, keep your hips down, only use your hamstrings, quit cheating, and that's just a good way to remind your partner, hey, you're doing this even if you don't feel it. I think that's the best thing for us, is we kind of just let each other know little cues to kind of make sure that we're just targeting that target muscle. Alright guys, so after that leg press, hamstrings are full of blood, we knew they were ready to go. So this is our big heavy movement, kind of our compound here. So we stacked the leg press up, kind of did a couple warm-up sets, really got the hamstrings stretched out. It took me about 3 sets and about 10 plates a side before I felt like I could even get to the bottom where I was supposed to be. But after we got stretched out and got ready, we loaded that thing up with what was it, like 14 plates a side or something like that, and just went all out there. So this is just a way to really drive yourself into the ground. You got anything to add to that, Brett?
Yeah, I mean, you explained the leg press. So make sure you're doing a hamstring focused leg press. So it's going to matter on your feet placement here. So this is very important. I didn't learn this right away, and it's one of those things like you need to watch YouTube. You need to watch these people ahead of you. You know, they're training to learn these tricks. So if you don't know this already, your foot placement matters on the leg press, on what muscles you're going to work. As you see in our video, we are wide and high stance, because our sole goal is to work as much hamstrings as possible. So the wider and the higher you go on the platform of the leg press, the more hamstring glute activation you are going to use. So if you see us, we're as wide and high as we can. We're letting our knees go outside of our body, and it's almost like we're hyperextending, you know, your knee joint, hyperextending almost to push through the weight. So you're just solely using your hamstring to hyperextend through, keep that load on the hamstring, and finish at the top. So control down, and as you see, we did what we did today, and this only matters if you can do it. You can set the, what are those called?
They're just little pins.
Yeah, so just pins, you know, for safety. We set those at the exact height where we think we're deep enough. So you come down and you actually rest it on those stops. So you rest it there for half a second to a second, then you press through. So what that's doing is it's killing all momentum. We're not just bouncing the weight, you know, we're coming down, stopping on the pins, and then pressing through wide and high. I really like this one. If you can do it at your gym, I really think you should start trying these, because it really makes you slow down the movement and focus on solely using your hamstrings, and it also just making sure you're exploding out of the body without momentum.
right, so after that, we went into adductors. Adductors is something that we do every leg day. Again, this is kind of the secret to big legs that a lot of people think is the girl exercise. So we call them good girls, but building the big inner quads here, and realistically, guys, this just gives you more width to your legs that you're not going to be able to get from any other movement. You get this a tiny bit in leg press, a tiny bit in squat, but to really train these muscles and get hypertrophy in them, you're going to have to use the adductor machine. You're going to have to use the girl machine. But honestly, guys, this will tear you up, and this is probably one of the hardest movements we do every single week. It makes me sore every single time, and I will say that I think it's added probably 2 inches to each one of my legs. Brett has a crazy transformation of his legs, and adductors has been a huge attributing factor to the size difference in his legs. What else you got to add about that?
Yeah, filling the thigh gap, you know, you got to fill that area. So, no, we were actually talking about this while doing it, like, back where I used to live, the adductor machine was only in the women's only room. So, like, it wasn't even accessible to the main gym area. And I would actually just sneak in there, and I got in trouble a bunch for doing it just to use that piece. But it was funny because, you know, the management was like, well, this is a girls' machine. And then that's when I went off on them. I'm like, this is not a girls-only machine. I mean, everybody has adductors, and it's extremely important, especially to men. If anything, you know, they should be using it just as much. So do not be afraid to use the adductor machine. Like I said, you know, the good girl, bad girls, but you want to build not only your hips, but also the inside of your leg. Like you said, it's definitely put about 1 inch or 2 on the width of your leg. So any tricks you can do to make your legs appear better, and that's not just growing your sweep. You know, you're always focused on that, but you also want to focus on the inside of the leg. So adductors are very, very important. All right, and to finish it off, we went with a barbell stiff leg deadlift. We are getting up in our weight, so we get some back pumps, especially on hamstring day and back day. So these bend over motions, these stretching motions, they really pump up our lower back. So what we do is, like, this is a great idea of planning your workout around, you know, maybe some deficiencies or, you know, some problems you might run into. So we're both on the same page here. We have some low back issues, meaning just pumps. That's part of growing. So we set up our workout that we're doing our pulls, we're doing our stretches on the hamstrings at the end of the workouts. So going into this too, guys, this movement I feel like is one of the most important for hamstrings. It's something that Brett and I use. I don't care what you use. It doesn't have to be a barbell, but you need to do something where you're elongating the hamstrings and getting a full stretch on them, especially after all these curls. You've pumped them up with all this blood in a shortening motion. Now you should stretch them. This is really going to help bring the blood flow back into the muscle, open the tissue up, and be able to let it to grow. I feel like this has added a lot of tissue to my hamstrings as well as my glutes. And to get this movement, a lot of people are going to have trouble with their low back. Something I'd advise is maybe widening your grip. So for me, going to a snatch grip actually helped transfer the load more into my glutes and hamstrings and less into my low back. So that's something you can try. I think that's helped Brett a little bit too as well. And other than that, guys, this is kind of something you just go to tell dead and finish yourself off, and then you saw him laying on the floor for 20 minutes, and that's just how it happened. So that's our hamstring day. Like, subscribe. Anything else you guys want to see, just let us know in the comments below.
Keep them coming.